Thank you, Women's Choir, and Tomas and Alex. Oh, that we might live in the valley of love and delight. As we begin our worship service this morning, I am mindful that the U.S. and Israeli governments have engaged in acts of war. Over the coming days, we will be hearing about all the misdeeds of the Iranian government and its leaders. But let us not lose sight of the fact that our current president is acting independently, without seeking counsel of the Congress as our founders intended and as our U.S. Constitution requires. Today, we will be going forward with the service we had planned, talking about African American women in history, but in the coming days and weeks, we will be talking about what is going on in the world and how we intend to respond as people of faith. But for now, let us hold in our hearts those service members who were killed or wounded in these attacks, and the many hundreds of civilians who have been killed or injured, many more who have lost their homes and who worry about their loved ones now missing. We light our chalice this morning in the name of peace. Peace in our hearts, peace in our homes, peace in our nation, peace in our world. And let us come together now in a time of worship. And we will light our Kumeyaay candle next.
In a spirit of reverence, we acknowledge that we gather on the land of the Kumeyaay. As we light this candle, we affirm our commitment to cultivate meaningful relationships with the people of this land and to work together for justice and equity. Con espíritu de reverencia, reconocemos que nos juntamos en la tierra de los Kumeyaay. Al encender esta vela, reafirmamos nuestro compromiso de cultivar relaciones significativas con los habitantes de esta tierra y de trabajar juntos por la justicia y la equidad. I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join me in singing number 1051. It's in the Teal hymnal, We Are. The words are also on the screen. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of lust and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are.
Good morning and welcome to the First Unitarian Church of San Diego. where we worship every Sunday in the South Bay, in Hillcrest, and online. Our mission is to create community, nurture spiritual growth, and to act on our values to help heal the world. I am Rose Van Oss, and I use the pronouns she and her, and I am a member of your Board of Trustees. If you are visiting, I want to extend a special welcome. We invite you to fill out the visitor card in your order of service and return it to the welcome table. If you are joining us online, you can also fill out a visitor card in the link on the live stream page or in the YouTube service description. We would love to connect with you. If you've been coming for a while and you're starting to feel like this is your spiritual home, consider becoming a member of this beloved community. You can learn more about becoming a member at the welcome table or by contacting Valeria Agrula, our membership coordinator.
And I'll just add, if you'd like to talk to a seasoned member about what it means to become a member of this community, you can talk with Marcia Viller after the worship service. She'll meet you. Where would you like to meet, folks? Right over here after the worship service. Welcome to this space. Bring all of who you are and all the beauty of languages, cultures, and skin tones that come together in your uniqueness. You are welcome here. In all of the ways you experience and express gender, you are welcome here. In the beauty that is whom you love and how you love, you are welcome here. In all the ways that you live, move, and experience your embodied self, you are welcome here. With all of the religious and ethical traditions that inform your spiritual life, you are welcome here. Together, may we live into our shared values with love at the center. It is good to be together.
And now we invite you to rise in body or in spirit and join us in singing our church hymn and reciting our church aspiration.
Good morning, friends. I'd like to invite up any children or youth who would like to come join me for our time for all ages. And while they're coming up, I'll draw your attention to the back of your music notes. There is a lot happening at 11:30 today. We have Parents Lounge in 114. We have UU History in room 323. We have Defending Democracy, an important topic today, in the common room, and that'll be with Valeria. As always, there's childcare in 113. Good morning, friends. Oh, thank you. How are you doing? Good morning. So friends, I called, as you can see up on the screen, I called today's time for all ages ad astra per aspera. Does anybody know what that means? Any Latin scholars? No? No, it means to the stars through our struggle, or through struggle to the stars. And it's the Kansas state motto, but we also see it a lot in a lot of organizations that have to do with outer space. And since today's service is focusing on Black women in history, I pulled out my little book here. It's called Little Leaders, Bold Women in Black History. And the challenge was every page is a different person. So I had to figure out how to pick just a few people to talk about from probably, 30 or 40 people in here. And as I started reading them, I realized that there was a theme about space and the stars that started jumping out. So I would like to talk to you about 5 women in history, in Black history, that I think have to do a little bit with space and the stars. And the first one, which you're going to hear a little bit more about later, grown-ups, is Harriet Tubman. Harriet lived from 1822 to 1913, and she was called by a lot of names throughout her life. She was Araminta, or Minty. Then she was called Moses when she started leading people on the Underground Railroad. That was sort of the secret path that got people up from the south to the north to freedom. She was a conductor on the railroad. She was called a conductor. Yeah, you heard of that one? But one of my favorite titles for her was started by John Brown, who you might know from John Brown's Raid. He called her in 1858 General Tubman. Mostly because she was just so brave and led so many people up to freedom. But then in 1963, during the Civil War, Harriet became the first woman to lead a major U.S. operation. She guided 150 Black Union soldiers on a raid, and she was only the third woman in recorded history to lead troops in combat. Then in 2024, the Maryland National Guard, posthumously, that means after she died, named her a real general. She's a brigadier general in the Maryland National Guard. And one of the ways Harriet and other conductors on the Underground Railroad led people to freedom was to follow the stars. You may have heard a song called Follow the Drinking Gourd. You can see in the picture the Big Dipper. And people knew if you followed that constellation, it would lead you north. And so she used the stars to guide people toward freedom. Now we're going to jump ahead to another person who lived from 1918 to 2020. And this is Katherine Johnson. So Katherine was always good at math. Anybody else good at math? Oh, there's some math people. We got one. Good job. And her teachers encouraged her to pursue a career in math. And so she did. And then in 1953, she got a job working for NASA. That's the organization that sends people to space. And this was before we had computers. Can you imagine a world without computers? Yeah, it was a little tricky. So they had to have people, like real people, do all the math. And those people who did the math were called computers because they computed the numbers. And so eventually America entered the race to get to the moon first. And Katherine got the job of calculating the flight path for the first missions into space. So imagine everything she had to think about. The Earth is spinning and moving around the sun, and the moon is orbiting the Earth, and this tiny little rocket has to go from one little spot on Earth all the way up to the moon, and all the way back, and then land in a very specific place. And she had to figure out all the math to make that happen. And she was so respected that John Glenn, who was the first American in space, refused to launch. He held up the launch until Katherine could check. He asked for her personally to check the numbers to make sure that his flight was going to go smoothly. The next person lived from 1959 to 2020, and her name is Nichelle Nichols. So Nichelle was a dancer and a singer, and she had a pretty successful career on the stage in musical theater. And then, in 1996, she got cast as Lieutenant Uhura in Star Trek. Anybody watch Star Trek? Oh, I thought we might have some Trekkies in the room. She was the first woman of color in history to have a leading role on a primetime television show. And then, imagine this, in 1968, she and one of her other cast members made history. They had the first kiss between two people of different races on television. And as you might imagine at that time, those of you who may have been around for that time, that did not go over very well with many people in the audience. And the studio started to cut down Nichelle's lines and scenes. So she had actually given Gene Roddenberry her resignation. She was planning to retire when she heard that there was a fan who wanted to meet her in the dressing room. And she was very surprised when the knock came at the door, and she turned around from her mirror and she saw that Star Trek fan. His name was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And when he found out in that meeting that she was going to retire, he said, "You cannot do that." He said, "Don't you understand? You are playing a commissioned officer in a show about the kind of future we are working to create." He said, "Star Trek is one of the few shows where you are seen, where our people are seen as they should be." He told her, "You don't have a black role, you have an equal role." And so Nichelle stayed on the series, and she went on to play Lieutenant Uhura in the rest of that series and all of the movies. Then we're going to jump to 1956 by somebody who was inspired by seeing Nichelle Nichols play an astronaut. This is a real astronaut, Mae Jemison. She was born in 1956. So Mae loved to read. Does anybody like to read? Oh, some readers. And since she was in kindergarten, she knew she wanted to be a scientist. But in college, she majored in chemical engineering and African American studies. And then she became a doctor and joined the Peace Corps. So she was a little busy during college. In 1983, she spent 2 years in West Africa. And then she was inspired by Sally Ride, the first American woman in space, and, as I said, by Nichelle Nichols' character on Star Trek. She joined NASA and was the first black woman in space. In 1993, she left NASA and created a company that researches how technology can help people in their everyday lives, and she opened a science camp for children. Mae was also a guest star in Star Trek on season 6, episode 24 of Star Trek: The Next Generation. So she's the first astronaut, real astronaut, to play an astronaut in Star Trek. And then I wanted to end with a woman who was born in 1947 and she died in 2006. This is Octavia Butler. Anybody ever heard of her? Oh, you can check out some of her books. I know are on our social justice cart. And if you'd like to borrow another one, I have all of her books at home. So despite struggling with dyslexia, Octavia began writing when she was 10 years old. One day, she was watching a science fiction show on TV, and she thought, "I can do better." And so she started writing short stories, which she wrote all through college. And then in 1976, she wrote her first book called Pattern Master. And it was the first book in a 4-part series, also the first science fiction novel written by a black woman author that had a black woman as a main character. 2 years later, she published a book called Kindred, which is probably her most famous book. And that's sort of a drama, but also a science fiction. It's about a woman who keeps getting pulled back in time in the South to a plantation in a time when slavery was still legal. So she's bouncing around in time. And it really allowed people to imagine what it would be like to live in that era in such horrible conditions. She wrote another book called The Parable of the Sower, which many UUs, myself included, look to for real spiritual direction. She introduced a religion in that book called Earthseed. And it had 3 main beliefs: that God is change, that our job is to shape that change, in other words, to shape God, and that we as human beings are Earthseed. Our destiny is to leave the planet and colonize the stars. She's also famous for her trilogy called Lilith's Brood, which is about a woman named Lilith who encounters some aliens. And interestingly, these aliens have 3 genders. They're male, the female, and the ooloi, who are just a 3rd gender. And so in her science fiction, as great science fiction does, she uses fictional stories, made-up stories, to explore real big ideas about race and class and gender. And I would highly recommend any of her books. So friends, I know that was a little long, but I thought it was important because what you might have noticed is that in under 150 years, these women went from having to use the stars to literally lead people to freedom to actually visiting the stars and imagining what a better future might look like if we kept aiming toward the stars. And their struggle, I think, was an important part of what helped them get there. So I hope we can embrace our struggle and use these women as examples for us of how we might take the things that are challenging in our lives and move toward something better. So thank you for listening to all that. And now I'm going to invite you to, those of us up here, we're going to stand up and lead our congregation in our affirmation. We'll say it first in English and then in Spanish. We are Unitarian Universalists, a people of open minds, loving hearts, and welcoming hands. Somos unitarios, universalistas, personas de mentes abiertas, corazones amorosos, y manos que dan la bienvenida. And now I invite any children or youth who would like to meet me and their other leaders out on the patio, and we'll head to our groups.
How many of us want to go home and watch Star Trek and read Octavia Butler? Soon. A lay minister is available after the service to offer a listening presence if you have something on your heart that you would like to share. And this morning, our lay minister is Michael. He's wearing the yellow scarf. Today, after worship, you are invited to have a tour of this campus to see some of the many beautiful gems here and hear some of our history. Our tour guide today is Laura, and she will meet you right up here after the postlude. Also today after worship, you can find Jan Gallo and me on the patio to find out more about wisdom circles. You know, this is a pretty big congregation, and if you're new here, it can feel a little bit daunting when you walk in and you see 200 people and you don't know any of them. And one of the things that we've learned is that what helps people feel connected to a large church is small group ministry. And some of those happen just by interest, like the choir is a small group ministry, or the food pantry is a small group ministry. But we also have this intentional community that we call wisdom circles, where you gather once a month with a group that you come to know over time, 8 to 12 people, and you engage in important questions and listen deeply to one another. It's a wonderful way to connect. So if you'd like to hear more about that, you can meet Jan Gallo and me on the patio, and I have a place where you can sign up for groups that have openings. One of the ways that we live our values is by sharing our offering with an organization that is working for justice. In the month of March, we will continue to share our offering with UU Rise. This was founded in 2007. They provide low-cost and no-cost legal and related services to immigrants and refugees. Now more than ever, we know that immigrants are being targeted, harassed, and mistreated. Supporting UU Rise is something we can do to help get legal assistance to those who urgently need it. You can give through text to give. You'll see that on the screen. You can also donate this morning in person by cash or check in one of the boxes in the middle level, or you can go online to our website, firstuusandiego.org. Right now we're in the middle of a database conversion, so the website is down, but you can still give by cash or check, and when the website is back up, you can resume your generous giving. So we thank you for your generosity, and thank you, Everett, for that reminder. The offering will now be gratefully received. Friends, we pause at this time in our service to honor the memory of Jack Sewell, who died on February 16th at the age of 84. And Jack's family tells me that he died peacefully in his sleep. Is Jack's family here in the meeting house? Oh, there you are. I just want to be able to look at you while I'm offering these words. Jack was a beloved member of this community for many years and a member of our board of trustees. He also volunteered in the larger San Diego community, most recently at Uptown Community Service Center. Jack was also a highly respected professor of political science at SDSU for over 30 years, and there are members here who studied with Jack and remember him fondly. We offer our deepest condolences to his family, including his wife Maureen and Corey, who are here with us this morning. We will hold a celebration of life for Jack on Saturday, March 21st at 10:30. We light this candle in Jack's honor and memory. And to mark the weightiness of this loss, we will extinguish the flame of our chalice, the symbol of our gathered community, because our company is diminished by the loss of him. Yet the light of this community continues, and Jack's spirit lives on in the stories and memories we share and the work that we carry on in his stead. And so from his candle, I will relight our chalice. The community of memory and hope shines on, and Jack lives among us in the heart's long memory. In mystery we are born, in mystery we live, and in mystery we die. Let us enter into a time of meditation and prayer. Spirit of life and love, there are so many worries and sadness and anger and despair that many of us are carrying at this time. And at times it feels like too much. And we know that some of our beloveds falter at times under the weight of all this distress and worry. And we are called to offer a hand, to offer a shoulder, to share what we have of our capacity, of our strength, of our love, to welcome them, to care for them, to support them. And may we in our turn remember that when we need support, we will be held with care. That is the gift of the beloved community that we seek to create and to build and to nurture. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen. Please join me in this responsive reading. I will read the regular font and you will read the italicized font. This is by Kuyama Raman. It is that time and that place. Now is the time to call on the memories of the ancestors who thought they could not walk another step toward freedom, and yet they did. Is that It is that time and place to remember those who came through the long night to witness another sunrise. It is that time and place to remember the oceans of tears shed, to clear us with the sun, to remember the many needs and progress. Time to remember their laughter and joy, though they had far less and little reason for optimism, yet they stayed on the path toward a better day. Time to hold the steadfast hands and hearts and prayers of the ancestors that brought us this far. Time to make them proud and show them and ourselves what we are made of. Time to show them that their prayers and sacrifices and lives were not in vain and did not go unnoticed, nor have they been forgotten. That was cool. I attended a preschool like the one we have here. Interestingly enough, it was in the parish hall of a Unitarian Universalist church, long before I knew such a thing existed, or that it would be my future. But I remember my mother loves to tell this story. My teacher, one of my teachers, Mr. Matson, gave feedback to my mother, and he said of 3-year-old Justine, "She likes to say things to shock people." I love that I resembled myself even then. And I was thinking about that back in 2017. I never thought I would have to say this early in the first term of the current president. Senator Elizabeth Warren was challenging the nomination of Jeff Sessions as Attorney General. God, I would take Jeff Sessions back in a heartbeat. Because of racist statements. I mean, that's probably a stretch, but because of racist statements that Sessions had made in the past. And Senator Warren wanted to read into the record a letter that Coretta Scott King had written in 1986 in opposition to Sessions' appointment as a judge on the federal court. So Senator Warren wanted to get that into the record as part of this confirmation hearing for the Attorney General. And Senator Mitch McConnell interrupted Senator Warren repeatedly, trying to get her to stop impugning the character of Senator Sessions. And then he uttered those famous words, "She has been warned, and still she persisted." And yes. And those words, "and still she persisted," became, you might remember, kind of a battle cry for women. And some colleagues and I thought that this would make an excellent sermon title and a wonderful frame for looking at especially the legacy of African American women in history, many of whom have been instrumental in the fight for justice, but are often overlooked by history, and still they persisted. Harriet Tubman Araminta Ross was born into slavery in 1822 in Dorchester County, Maryland. She suffered all the violence and indignity that you would expect an enslaved person to have suffered, and once she was hit in the head with a large metal object that her master had actually thrown at someone else. The resulting head injury left her with lifelong seizures and headaches and frequent hallucinations, which she experienced as religious visions, and still she persisted. In 1849, because of her own poor health and the death of her owner, the person that enslaved her, she decided to escape to the north. She changed her name to Harriet after her mother and Tubman after her husband. 2 of her brothers accompanied her part of the way, but they were afraid and turned back. But she persisted, and she made it to Pennsylvania to freedom. But she returned 19 more times and led some 60 other people to freedom. You know, like running into a burning house and rescuing people. She served as a spy during the Civil War, and as we heard from Tony, she collaborated with John Brown on that famous raid. Who knew this? That she, a woman, had played such significant roles not only in freeing enslaved people, but also in the course of the war. A partially disabled woman with a head injury. Imagine. Now, if you've ever taken a psychology class, you probably remember the concept known as learned helplessness. It was first observed in lab animals who would engage in a certain behavior if they received a reward, and would cease that behavior if they received a punishment, such as a shock. But if they were punished at random, with no discernible pattern or cause, with no clear way to affect the outcome, the animals would just lie down and give up. Soon they would stop taking nourishment, and they would die. So think for a moment about slavery. People held captive in service to other people, mistreated in every possible way. They could be sold, separated from their loved ones with no say over the dozens of decisions that most people are able to make in the course of a day. Where, when, and what to eat, what to wear, what work to do, when to rest, whom you can love. Slavery permeated every aspect of their physical experience, but many of them had a secret weapon. They found a way to have a spiritual life that their enslaver could not touch, could not take from them. And for women like Harriet Tubman, their faith gave them hope and fueled their resistance and their resilience. To take action on your own behalf, whether inspired by God or by principles of fairness and decency, but to take action is the opposite of learned helplessness. It's the antidote to learned helplessness. And even to risk death is an act of agency, of being alive. I doubt that I would have been as brave as Tubman was to get myself free and then go back again and again. And sharing these stories at a time when the history is being erased is an act of resistance. And so we must share these stories. Bessie Coleman was born to sharecroppers in Texas in 1892. She was one of 13 children. In 1901, her father left the family, probably in response to racial violence. Remember, lynching was commonplace at that time in the South. Bessie was a gifted student, but her time in school was often interrupted by the cotton harvest. She attended an industrial college in Oklahoma, but could only afford to continue for one semester, and so she left and moved to Chicago as part of the Great Migration North, along with two of her brothers who had served in France during World War I. Bessie admired the pilots of World War I, and when her brothers told her about the women pilots they had seen in France while serving there, Bessie was determined that she would become a pilot. Now, no women, certainly no African American women, could be accepted into aviator training in the United States, but she persisted. She learned French, and she attended pilot training in France and had a career as a pilot. And it was her dream to open a pilot training program for African Americans in the US, but she died tragically in an air show accident at the age of 34. I first learned of Pauli Murray when I was reading about Eleanor Roosevelt, a great hero of mine. Pauli Murray was a young woman living in a work camp during the Depression, and Mrs. Roosevelt visited that camp as First Lady and was taken with this young woman, the only African American woman in the camp. She was impressed with her intelligence and her self-assuredness. Who was this woman who became a friend to the First Lady? Pauli Murray was born Anna Pauline Murray on November 20th, 1910. When she was 3 years old, her mother died suddenly of a cerebral hemorrhage, and Pauli was sent to live with an aunt for whom she was named. When she was 12, her father, overcome with grief and depression, was admitted to a psychiatric facility where he was beaten to death by a guard. And friends, this just feels completely possible, doesn't it, even today, that such horrible treatment could happen. She taught herself to read at age 5 and read everything she could get her hands on. By the time she graduated from high school at age 15, she was the editor-in-chief of the school newspaper, president of the Literary Society, class secretary, a member of the debate club, the top student, and a forward on the basketball team. Now, she could have easily attended the local college for black students, but she objected to segregation on principle, and she wanted to go north. She moved to the home of a cousin in New York to establish residency and to complete high school. The school for black students in her town in North Carolina only went through the 11th grade. She completed high school in Queens, the only black student in a school of 4,000, and then she entered Hunter College. She moved to Harlem and became friends with Langston Hughes and met W.E.B. Du Bois and became part of the emerging scene of Black intellectuals and artists in Harlem in the late 1920s. She graduated from college in 1933, the height of the Depression, and held a variety of jobs and got involved in the labor movement, right? This reaching back for others. She applied to the University of North Carolina for graduate school and was told that the members of her race could not attend the university. She asked the NAACP to help her sue the university for discrimination, but they declined to take her case. She rode the bus home from New York to North Carolina for Easter and refused to move to the back of the bus and was arrested years before Rosa Parks became famous for a similar action. But this action did bring Pauli Murray to the attention of other activists, and soon she became a sought-after speaker at fundraisers for progressive causes. And in the audience of one of her speeches one day was none other than Thurgood Marshall. And he convinced her to go to law school. A law school professor who was also in the audience said he would arrange a scholarship for her to attend Howard University Law School, which she did. And this is where Pauli did something that ought to have made her completely famous. She made the point in a law class and in her final paper in 1944 that lawyers should argue against discrimination on the basis of separateness, not equality, that the separateness was in and of itself a violation of the Constitution. Pauli bet her professor $10 that within 25 years, Plessy v. Ferguson, the case that legalized separate but equal discrimination, would be overturned. Not quite 10 years later, that law professor was working with Thurgood Marshall on the Brown v. Board of Education case, and he remembered the paper that Pauli wrote, and he put forth her argument, which won the day. I don't know if he gave her credit, but we're giving her credit. Pauli went on to teach at Brandeis, and then to almost everyone's surprise, she entered seminary and became the first African-American woman ordained in the Episcopal Church. A month later, she administered her first Eucharist at the little church in North Carolina where her grandmother, an enslaved person, had been baptized. I wish I could say that hers was a happy story. She attained great success in her 75 years against the odds, but she lived a closeted life. She had relationships with women, but did not identify as lesbian. It's possible that she was transgender. She tried to get hormones so that she could live as a man, but little is known about this part of her life. Audre Lorde was an openly lesbian Black activist, writer, and poet. February 18th, just a week ago, was her birthday. She would have been well into her 80s had she lived. She was born in 1934. She'd be in her 90s, and she died of breast cancer in 1992 at the age of 58. She wrote powerful essays and journals about living with cancer, about the double, triple bind of being Black, female, and lesbian, encountering homophobia in the Black community, racism in the women's community, and sexism everywhere. It was Audre Lorde who said, "Your silence will not protect you." Just a personal story. I remember where I was. I was driving in my car in the late 1980s, and I was listening to an interview with Terry Gross. She was interviewing Audre Lorde. And Terry said, "Audre, I understand that you live with a white woman as partners, and together you're raising your children, and you've always told your children to be open about who they are and about who their family is." And Terry wondered and asked her, why would you subject your children to the bullying that would certainly come from sharing that story? Remember, this was the 1980s. Why would you tell them to risk it? And Audre said, when you spend energy hiding who you are, you give power to your enemies. I had to pull over. I thought about my own life and how much I was hiding, and it really inspired me to be more open. I close with Audre Lorde's piece, Litany for Survival. For those of us who live at the shoreline, standing upon the constant edges of decision, crucial and alone. For those of us who cannot indulge the passing dreams of choice, who love in doorways, coming and going in the hours between dawns, looking inward and outward at once before and after, seeking a now that can breed futures like bread in our children's mouths so their dreams will not reflect the death of ours. For those of us who were imprinted with fear like a faint line in the center of our foreheads, learning to be afraid with our mother's milk. For by this weapon, this illusion of some safety to be found, the heavy-footed hoped to silence us. For all of us, this instant and this triumph, we were never meant to survive. And when the sun rises, we are afraid it might not remain. When the sun sets, we are afraid it might not rise in the morning. When our stomachs are full, we are afraid of indigestion. When our stomachs are empty, we are afraid we may never eat again. When we are loved, we are afraid love will vanish. When we are alone, we are afraid love will never return. And when we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard nor welcomed. But when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it is better to speak, remembering that we were never meant to survive. Let us remember these courageous, wise, and bold women of color who, against great odds, nevertheless persisted. May it be so.
We invite you to rise in body or in spirit and join us in singing our closing hymn, There's a River Flowing in My Soul.
Our closing words are by Sojourner Truth. If we laugh and sing a little as we fight the good fight of freedom, it makes it all go easier. Let us not allow our life's light to be determined by the darkness around us. Go in peace, beloveds, and may we persist.